Good evening and welcome to the March 14th Planning and Zoning Commissioners meeting. Shannon, can we have roll call, please?
Messina,
Here?
Fleming,
Here.
Ingalls,
Here?
Lutrip,
Here.
Mandel,
Here.
McCracken,
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Okay, thank you. If you can join me with the pledge, please.
One nation, indivisible, justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I need approval of the February 14th minutes, please.
Move approval.
Second.
Yeah, first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, can you hear me? You guys hear me? Okay. At this time, it's public comment, and that's anything that anyone wants to speak on that isn't on the agenda. Okay. Staff comments.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
So we will not have a meeting in April. We didn't get any application items, so you have a free month.
Oh, my goodness.
So take advantage, because we'll be working you hard as our impact fees are ready to come forward. And those are on track, so the consultant team is working hard on getting all the data from us and building those capital improvement plans for police and fire to update our impact fees. So stay tuned on that.
That's it? Very
Yeah.
short. Wow.
Thanks.
Okay. Commission comments?
Not I.
None? Okay. Moving right along. First item is an administrative item. It's Bearwater Front LLC, a 12-month extension for an item. And
Good evening, Commissioners.
good evening.
An administrative item. This Bear Waterfront LLC is requesting a one-year extension of S-5-21, a preliminary plat that consists of 11 lots and 5 tracts known as Mahogany Lane PUD. It's 3.6 acres located at 2252 West Bellarive Lane. They first came in December of 2021, and they weren't able to get their subdivision installed, so they submitted a letter in December of 2022 for a one-year extension. So the decision point tonight is to approve or deny the one-year request.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Mike. Question, help me understand the process. There's construction going on these lots, correct?
That is correct. They get the preliminary plat approved, they submit construction plans, and they start to install the infrastructure. And this particular subdivision had some unique retaining walls and stuff that put them back, and some engineering, and that pushed their timeline back.
That was going to be my next question is, what are the issues that are preventing recordation of the final plat?
It was mainly installing the infrastructure. There was a fire on one of the houses in the lots, and that stalled some of the construction, and then that retaining wall issue that they had.
And as you point out in the report, the code allows for 5.
It does allow for 5, and this is the first for the
So we're only
first
looking at one
request.
here. So
But they-
thank you.
How does that impact Centennial Trail? Does that leave that out for a year as well, then, the relocation of
It's part of the
Centennial Trail?
conditions for them to install it this summer.
this summer?
Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't really delay the projection of
No.
when that's going to transition? Okay. All right.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. We need a roll call on this or just a simple motion, Hillary?
Simple motion's fine.
Okay. If we can have a motion,
I would motion that we approve this extension.
okay, have a motion? I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Moving right along. First item is the applicant is the City of Coeur d'Alene Police Department. I propose civic administrative office use special use permit in a LM zoning. Tammy, go ahead.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners.
Good evening.
So the City of Coeur d'Alene is the applicant, and Captain Dave Hager with the Coeur d'Alene Police Department is here this evening. And so the request is for a civic administrative special use permit in the light manufacturing zoning district to allow for the Coeur d'Alene Police Department to expand their existing headquarters building into the abutting parcel to the north that was recently acquired. So the property address is 3818 Schreiber Way, and it was published in the press on February 25th, 2023. So this is a location map. This is Kathleen Avenue, and this is the subject property located here, and this is Schreiber Way, or excuse me, this is Schreiber Way here. And as you can see, the waste transfer station is here, and north on Kathleen Avenue is a school. And this is Kathleen and Ramsey Road intersection here. And this is a site photo giving you a better picture of where the subject property is. So this is the existing police headquarters building located here. This is Schreiber Way. Excuse me. This is the vacant property. And it doesn't show on this aerial photo Safe Splash, which is a recreational use, but that has been built. So a little bit of background. If approved, the current police headquarters building located on the adjacent lot to the south would be expanded into the newly acquired lot to the north. The first phase would include approximately 5,000 square feet as far as an addition, and the goal would be to have a future expansion of another 20,000 square feet in the future, with a total complex square footage of about 25,000 square feet. This new facility would include several offices, an evidence storage area, and shower and locker facilities. It may include briefing rooms and meeting rooms. The expansion is needed due to the increasing population to maintain the current level of service with regard of public safety. And so this existing police headquarters building already has a special use permit that was approved for civic administrative in 1997. So as you can see, the existing building, as I mentioned, and then this is where the future addition to the law enforcement center would be, parking here, and then a future storage building with additional parking to the rear. So there are 3 required findings for this request. Finding B8A, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan map. So the subject property is within the city limits, and the comprehensive plan categorizes this area as general industrial as a place type. So this is the subject property noted here, and it is general industrial. Industrial places include manufacturing and logistics that provide a range of job type services and wage levels. Areas are located to provide concentrated areas of employment, areas that create goods and services with a mix of indoor industrial uses and separated from residential areas. So I won't read the entire thing, but that area is encompassed with that zoning. However, when I get to one of the upcoming slides, there are a lot of special use permits that have been approved throughout that area. So as far as a civic use, civic places are typically public-owned spaces such as parks, cemeteries, public facilities that have a civic function for the Coeur d'Alene community. Civic uses in limited instances may also include private open space located within a planned development. Schools and education facilities are considered civic places. So finding B8B, the design and planning of the site is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existed uses on adjacent properties. As I mentioned, the police headquarters building currently abuts the subject property to the south, and if this special use permit is approved, it would allow for a much-needed expansion into the property that has been acquired to the north. And as I mentioned, new facility would be providing several offices, evidence, storage area, shower, and locker facilities. Land uses in the area include civic uses such as Ramsey School, Jenny Stokes Field, and city shops and a fire station. And as I mentioned, the police headquarters does abut the subject property. Safe Swim is a recreational use, and that is located to the north of the subject property. And there are a number of special use permits that have been approved in Commerce Park. So this is a graphic showing all the special use permits within this area. So directly south is the police department, civic administrative, commercial recreation, professional office, another professional office, and multiple uses throughout this area. So there have been quite a few that have been approved in this area. So as far as the site photos, this is looking at the subject property, and the view is looking west. You can see the existing police department building located here and city streets storage building. This is another view. This is showing, again, the side of the existing police department headquarters from the edge of the property. And this is from Schreiber Way looking at the existing police headquarters building. This is Safe Splash, which is the recreational use that was approved by special use permit. And this is a view with the police headquarters building that abuts the subject property to the south, Safe Splash to the north, and then the city streets building maintenance buildings. And this is a view from the southeastern property corner looking north along Schreiber Way, and Kathleen Avenue is located back here. This is looking south from the subject property along Schreiber Way toward the Coeur d'Alene Police Department building, which abuts the property. And this is a view looking east from the subject property along Schreiber Way at one of the neighboring businesses. And this is looking north from Schreiber Way toward Kathleen Avenue. So as far as zoning, this is all zoned light manufacturing, with manufacturing here, and then nearby is C-17, and then a PUD with single-family dwellings. As far as land uses, there are some civic uses around, commercial uses, and vacant property, and then some manufacturing uses. Finding B8C, that the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. City staff from all of the noted departments did weigh in on this and review the application regarding the public utilities and facilities, and each department indicated that there are adequate public facilities and public utilities available to serve this proposed request, and there were no objections to this request. As far as traffic generated from this proposed development is a result of growth in the area rather than contributing to growth. Schreiber Way and Kathleen Avenue have available capacity to accommodate the traffic from the new project. And Streets and Engineering had no objections to the proposed special use permit. There are no recommended conditions, but I did want to provide the comment from the police department. The Coeur d'Alene Police Department supports the requested special use permit to allow for the expansion of the police headquarters in order to continue to provide adequate services at its current level, and expansion is necessary due to the increased population and continued growth in Coeur d'Alene. So again, no conditions, and the Planning Commission will need to consider this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice.
Thanks, Tammy.
Any questions for me?
Go ahead, John.
Thanks for your report, Tammy. Appreciate it. I want to touch on, you made the statement, you've worked for planning for a long time.
Yes,
And you made the statement that there's been quite a few special use permits approved for what I would call Schreiber Park or whatever it's
Yes.
called. My sense is, and I see if it's yours as well, really the majority of the developed properties in there are probably other than light manufacturing. That the majority are developed as civic, commercial, office, professional, business services and whatnot. So I guess, way back in the day when Schreiber was conceived as a LM light manufacturing area, it really hasn't developed in that manner, correct?
that's correct. There are a couple of uses that I can think of. Coeur d'Alene Cellars, that was more of that manufacturing, and they got a special use permit to have their tasting room and retail, so it was a little opposite. But yes, for the most part, they all have special use permits.
As we've seen these kind of coming before us over the years, it's a sense that I have that we've kind of reached a tipping point that it's really developed out as civic, professional offices, business support, that kind of thing.
That's correct.
That it's almost an odd fit to me if someone came in to build light manufacturing in there.
That's
Is that your sense as well? Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Tammy. Appreciate it. Do we have anyone signed up, Hill? No one signed up? Okay. Captain Hager, do you wish to add anything that we haven't heard from Tammy? If not, it's fine.
The only thing I'd add is we're planning ahead for our total build-out, which has also been part of the impact fee discussions. And so we have a calculation of our sworn and civilian staff that's going to be there, the number of parking spaces. We've looked at this all the way through, and this will help us be the best financial responsibility for the city to expand our building to this location. It'll meet all of our needs for the future, and we would just request approval of this condition.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to close public testimony on this, bring it to the commissions for discussion and a motion.
I'd make a motion.
Well, it needs findings,
Pardon me?
the findings.
I would make a motion in favor of
sorry.
this and work in the form of walking through the findings for this. That this is a matter that's come before the Planning Commission tonight, March 14th, and there being present a person requesting approval of item SP 2-23, a civic administrative special use permit in the light manufacturing zone district, applicant being the city of Coeur d'Alene, Captain Dave Hager, Coeur d'Alene Police Department, for a location that is a plus or minus 1.6 acre parcel located at 3813 Schreiber Way. Motion would include the findings of B1 through B7 that are findings of fact in our worksheet, and that we adopt finding B8 pursuant to section 17.09.220 special use permit criteria. A special use permit may be approved only if the proposal conforms to all of the following criteria to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission, with the finding B8A that the proposal is in conformance with the comp plan as follows, adopting those goals and objectives that are listed in our findings worksheet, and in particular strength of goal HS3, that we continue to provide exceptional police, fire, and emergency services. The motion would include B8B, that the design and planning of the site is compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. And that's based on the staff report presented to us, illustrating that the proposed uses would fit the surrounding uses in the Schreiber development. That we would include in the motion a finding B8C, that the location, design, and size of the physical of the proposal are such that the development will be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. And that would be based on the staff report that supports the finding, as Tammy pointed out, that there are no issues with water, wastewater, traffic, etc. So with that, as a conclusion, the Planning Commission, pursuant to the aforementioned, would find that Captain Dave Hager, City of Coeur d'Alene Police Department, for a special use permit as described in the application should be approved.
Thank you, John.
Second the motion.
Have a second?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, Shannon?
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mandel,
Yes.
McCracken,
Yes.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you. Next is a modification to the Union PUD, and also in the same application, it's a modification to the preliminary plat, the Union. And Mike, you can give us an update on it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is the two items before you on this particular presentation, PUD 3-19M-2 and S-4-19M2. Applicant is Active West LLC, and they're represented by HMH Engineering. The two requests are a proposed modification to allow Lot 24 of the Union PUD to split into 8 residential and 1 mixed-use lot, and a modification and replat of the preliminary plat of the Union PUD subdivision on property that is located immediately east of the intersection of BB Boulevard and Union Drive. Legal notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on February 25th, 2023, and all other required notifications have been made. The modification requests are as follows. The front, rear, side, right-of-way, sidewalk, and minimum lot area and lot width frontage are all exactly the same as the original PUD. There's no change in that. The only change the applicant is requesting in this PUD rather than the first one is the side yard setback of 3 feet rather than 5 feet, and that is just for the mixed-use lot. And then that 3-foot setback is going to be adjacent to an open space plaza rather than another residential lot. And I'll illustrate that in the future on the other slides. Property is located here, highlighted in red. This is BB Boulevard. This is Northwest Boulevard. Spokane River is located here. There's a close-up aerial photograph. The property before you tonight is highlighted here in red. Here's a bird's eye view looking southeast. So the first item is the PUD, and there are 7 findings for a PUD, finding B8A through B8G. We'll start with the first one with B8A, that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan indicates this area in the plan development. Plan development areas are areas where building design and scale, transportation, open space, and other elements are approved through the City of Coeur d'Alene PUD evaluation process. This slide represents comprehensive plan's goals and objectives as it relates to this request. The full list is on page 9 and 10 of your staff report. First goal, GD1, develop a mix of land uses throughout the city that balance housing and employment while preserving the qualities that make Coeur d'Alene a great place to live. An objective to meet that would be to promote mixed-use development and small-scale commercial uses to ensure that neighborhoods have services within walking and biking distances. The next finding, B8B, that the design and planning of the site is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. Here's a full site plan of the full PUD. This has already been approved. This is the lot 24 that they're requesting to modify. And here's a close-up of that site plan. You can see they're twin homes, be exactly the same as what was built down the road. And this is the mixed-use lot, and that 3-foot setback is located here adjacent to this plaza open space. Some site photos of the property looking southeast, one looking north along BB Boulevard, one looking southeast along Union, one on the center of the property looking north, center of the property looking northwest, again looking northwest towards BB Boulevard. Here's a zoning map illustrating the zoning. It's C17 PUD to the south and also to the southwest. To the north, we have some C17, and to northeast, northwest, we have R17 PUD. Some land uses to the north, we have commercial uses, residential uses to the southeast, mixed-use development located south, and to the northwest, we have some residential. Finding B8C, that the proposal is or is not compatible with the natural features of the site and adjoining properties. The subject property is relatively flat with BB Boulevard to the west. The natural features of the site are consistent with the natural features of the surrounding properties, including the residential subdivision to the south and the commercial uses to the north. Here's the applicant's proposed mixed-use building, elevation looking on the front. Here's the mixed-use building from the rear. And these are the residential units the applicant intends to build. And this is an image of the applicant submitted of the existing residence on Union Drive. Finding B8D, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing public facilities and services. City staff from engineering, streets, water, fire, parks, police, and wastewater departments have reviewed the application request in regards to public utilities and public facilities. And city staff has indicated that there are adequate public services, and facilities available. See pages 18 and 19 of the staff report for full comments. Finding B8E, the proposal does or does not provide adequate private common open space area as determined by the commission, no less than 10% of gross land area, free of buildings, streets, driveways, or parking areas. The common open space shall be accessible to all users of the development and usable for open space and recreational purposes. The applicant is proposing 10% open space that can be accessed by the public and the residents of the proposed development. The proposed open space will consist of 3 public open space areas that will include a patio area, a 10-foot trail connection to Centennial Trail, picnic tables, box planters, native grasses, and boulders with wildflower plantings. Here is their open space plan that they have submitted. You can see the open space 1 towards the southeast, 1 in the central, and this is that open space plaza along BB Boulevard. And here's a close-up of that open space tract with patio tables and seating, planters, and a hardscape plaza. And this is that 3-foot setback. Here is the open space to the southeast. And then finding B8F. Off-street parking does or does not provide parking sufficient for the users of the development. There was no request made to change the city's off-street parking requirements through the PUD process. Single-family homes will be required to provide 2 off-street paved parking spaces per unit, which is consistent with the code requirements for single-family residential. The mixed-use development will be required to meet all of the off-street parking requirements for the proposed commercial and residential uses. Finding B8G, that the proposal does or does not provide for an acceptable method for the perpetual maintenance of all common property. The applicant has indicated that he has incorporated CC&Rs which have placed the duty of the maintaining the common area, landscape buffers, retaining walls, and other open space amenities on the Union Homeowners Association. The HOA will be responsible for continued maintenance of all open space areas and all private infrastructure. Now on to the subdivision findings. There are 4 findings that must be met in order for a subdivision to be approved. Finding B7A through B7D. Start with the first one. That'd be B7A. This is the preliminary plat that was submitted, and these are the residential lots with the 1 mixed-use lot and then the open space tract. Finding B7A, that all of the general preliminary plat requirements have or have not been met and attested by the city engineer. The city engineer has reviewed this application and has indicated that the preliminary plat submitted contains all of the general preliminary plat requirements required by the municipal code. Please note, the Planning Commission approved deviations to the subdivision code through the approval of the plan unit development for this project. Requested deviations from the subdivision code include reduction of required street width, sidewalk on only one side of the street. Finding B7B, that the provisions for sidewalks, streets, alleys, rights-of-ways, easements, street lighting, fire protection, planting, drainage, pedestrian and bicycle facilities, and utilities are or are not adequate. City staff has indicated there are adequate public services and facilities available. Staff has recommended 8 conditions as part of this PUD and subdivision request. Please see pages 18 and 19 of the staff report for the full list of staff comments. Finding B7C, that the proposed preliminary plat does or does not comply with all of the subdivision design standards and all of the subdivision improvement standards. Per city engineering review, the purpose of the preliminary plat for both subdivision design standards and improvement standards have been vetted for compliance. And finally, the last finding B7D, that the lots proposed in the preliminary plat do or do not meet the requirements of the applicable zoning district. The proposed subdivision will bring the total number of units over the whole development to 32 units. The result of the whole development is an overall density of 8.9 units per acre. The existing zoning is C17, which allows a mix of housing types at a density of 17 units per acre. The existing zoning allows for a maximum of 61 units. The proposed subdivision is in conformance with the modifications that were requested in the PUD in item PUD-3-19M2. There are 8 recommended conditions. And the decision point tonight is to make two separate findings, one for the PUD, a proposed modification to allow Lot 24 of the Union PUD to be split into 8 residential and 1 mixed-use lot. And the other finding is a modification of the replat of the preliminary plat of the Union PUD subdivision. You'll need to consider these two separate requests and make separate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. And that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Mike. Question, I got a quick question. On the first, the PUD 319M2, on our staff report on page 19, from the streets, with Chris Bosley, I know Chris is in here. On his statement, it indicated that, in the middle of the paragraph, the existing street width would not allow for on-street parking, potentially creating an enforcement issue or pushing overflow parking problems to other areas. Streets and Engineering has concerns over parking, but has no objections to the proposed PUD. Is that something we should ask the applicant or staff, or can answer a little bit?
Yeah, and I don't, Chris is not here,
Right.
and I don't recall his comments in particular. I'm looking at him right now. But I know there is some on-street parking on, and Mike might be able to show that on some of the images, and I'm sure the applicant representative could speak to that as well. One side of the street allows for the on-street parking. And then as Mike mentioned, there's, all of the code requirements have been met for the single-family homes and for the mixed use. So there's not any reduction requested with the project.
But in the original PUD, that was approved, this road width was approved in the original
In the
PUD.
original PUD.
And this is not, the road width is not part of this PUD request.
Okay. All right. That's the only question I had. No other questions, all right. Oh, John, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Questions about open space, and just asking this somewhat in a, I don't know, kind of an educational way, maybe for the benefit of all of us, because all of these PUDs require 10% private open space, correct?
Private or public.
Private or public. So, as you point out, one of the findings we have to make up here, B8E, is that it provides 10% open space, correct?
That's correct.
And I think it's kind of cool, personally, because I use the trail a lot, and I'm assuming that's voluntary on the applicant's part to bind themselves to it being public. So I am assuming that down the road, there'd be some teeth to this, that 5 years, 10 years from now, if we wanted to convert these open space areas to private or some other use, the applicant is bound to keep it public without reopening the PUD through a public hearing process, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. As part of the PUD process and the subdivision plat process, these open space will be platted in separate tracts and then will be recorded as open space tracts. And the only way to change that would be to come back before the planning commission to try to change that.
But not just public, or not just open space tracts, but public open space.
That's correct. If
Thank
they
you,
want-
Mike.
Doesn't look like any more questions, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate it. Is the applicant here? Okay. Just give me your name and city you live in, and I'll swear you in.
Christine Baker, and I live in the wonderful city of Coeur
Do
d'Alene.
you solemnly swear and or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Well, go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so we have come back to you with a new proposal. We feel that this fits in a lot better with the original PUD and what was originally approved. Let me go to the beginning. This is the blown-up version of what we are changing, that Lot 24, splitting it into 8 residential lots, 1 mixed-use lot, and that open space tract that we had just talked about. That 3-foot setback that we're asking for instead of 5 is just on that open space border. We are not asking for it on the the right-hand side right there against the residential. That's still going to be the 5. That is the only difference in what was previously approved in terms of requirements. The open space, I think I have, this is what it could look like. This is just a rendering of that mixed-use building, and having that patio space open to the public, lots of bike racks, tables, landscaping, right on that Centennial Trail, I think will really improve the usability. In terms of parking, we have met the city code requirements for parking. We are providing at least 2 off-street parking spaces per residential unit, and the mixed-use lot, here's just a parking schematic in case you guys had any questions. The commercial parking requirement, that will be fulfilled by the carport that is underneath on that first floor of that building. There are 4 spots underneath there, and then there's the ADA required parking spot in the front. The residential has 3 garage spots, as well as 2 spots that are in their driveway, essentially. So we are actually providing more spots than is required. And then those renderings one more time of that mixed-use building. Did you guys have any questions in regards to this new proposal?
Questions? And can you just give me your name again? I didn't get it.
Christine Baker.
Thank you, Christine. No other questions, Christine? Okay. We got a couple people that signed up, but I have a Karen Henson, and she just indicated maybe,
Yes.
but she's coming up. Just give me your name and your city you live in. That's
Karen
what-
Hansen, Coeur d'Alene.
Thank you. Do you solemnly swear and or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So
I
help you
do.
God. Okay, go right ahead, Karen.
I said maybe because when I got the email, I wasn't sure what the changes were going to be, but this is a big change from when they first applied for the PUD down there. There was going to be some off-street parking, and the building structure was completely different. Now it looks like the building completely covers that whole lot. Is that correct?
The mixed-use lot?
Yes.
No, it's no, we have to have you can get a chance to respond to any of her
Okay.
questions after she's done.
So I think if you approve the, I don't know what you want to call it.
Commercial lot.
The 3-foot versus what the code is supposed to be, I think you're going to open yourself up for a whole bag of worms of other developers asking for the same kind of concessions. And how can you say no to one and yes to another? So I think that you should stick with the code. I'd like to know what the mathematical calculations are for the 10% of open space. It doesn't look like, just looking at it, doesn't look like 10% to me. They've already got concessions on the street and the sidewalk. I think giving them another concession on the 3-foot setback versus the 5-foot is not supposed to be allowable. Again, I think you're just going to set yourself up for a can of worms from other developers coming and asking for the same thing. And I implore you, each and every one of you, to drive down those streets that you've approved the concessions on the parking and the streets, the narrow streets, the no sidewalks. I implore you to drive down there and see the situation that it's developed. There's no room for 2 cars to pass. I worry about the pedestrians and the young kids that are living down in that area on such a narrow street. They just walk right out of their house and they're basically in the street. So please, please go down there and see for yourself what these developments look like before you pass anything further, giving them further concessions on utilizing every inch of their space, because it's just making it more and more dense. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, I have a Karen Schumacher, and.
Schumer.
Sure, and you want to talk, okay, indicated you did not, but you do. State your name, city you live in, I'll swear you in.
Karen Schomer.
Thank you.
I
Do you-
live in the area
Okay,
of Riverstone in Coeur d'Alene.
all right, and do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go right ahead, thank you.
I concur with the former lady's statements. You have to drive down there, you have to live there to realize how condensed all of this is. I don't know why we're back here for a third time when it's already been approved and now they're coming back and asking for modifications. The 10% public use, I'm not that impressed because there's no private land for these homes that are there. They're dominoed up against each other. They have no property except for what's concreted in. And then their driveways are typically half the size of normal driveways. So if they're parking their cars on their property, they're sticking out halfway into the street, the very narrow street that's very dangerous already, the way it sits. It's just very congested down there. The traffic is, most of the time I have to turn right to turn left. It's just getting out of hand. I'm not opposed to change. I was here when we approved this union project to go in, but them coming back and having only a 3-foot setback, it's ridiculous to me. So as a resident of that area, I ask you to ask for further modifications. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no one else signed up. Is there anyone else who wants to speak that didn't sign up yet? And Christine, you want to address some of the comments that were made?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry for speaking out of turn there for a moment. So the 10% open space, that is over the PUD as a whole. This is not needing to be or is calculated to be 10% of just this lot. The 10% as a whole of the PUD is going to be dispersed between these 3 open space tracts. So I know that was a comment. The street parking that was originally in the PUD, we're not touching that. That is there currently. That has already been approved. It's there now. We are, and in terms of the narrow streets, it is a residential street, and one of the an engineering tool that we frequently use is a road diet, and it's been proven that narrower streets cause people to drive slower and more safely, especially in residential areas when there are pedestrians walking around. In the street width, we're not touching. That has already been approved. That's already there. The question about the commercial building footprint, that is this line here. It is not the entire lot. We're not covering the entire lot with a building. We're in our setbacks, except for that. We're asking for that 3 feet instead of 5. 2 feet of a difference on an open space lot just didn't seem like that would be a problem. The driveways, we are meeting the city code of a 20-foot depth of driveway. We have that setback to the house for that driveway. That is a standard requirement, and we are meeting that. And I think that was all of the issues that people had brought up.
Okay.
If there's anything else.
Questions before I close public?
I-
Go right ahead. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Let me ask a couple of questions.
Of course.
That 3-foot setback
Yes.
is adjacent to the public open space, right?
Correct.
And how wide is the open space?
Let me just zoom into that. At the southern end, it's about 29 feet wide, and at the northern end, it's about 36 feet.
So the first building from Beebe is actually about 30 feet back.
Correct. Well, This building from BB, no. If this is 35 feet plus the 3-foot setback, it's almost like 30, it would probably be around 35-ish because it narrows, but yes.
One other thing, I know you have the 2 parking spaces per unit. Are those outside or in a garage, and are they tandem or parallel, side by side?
They both, so driveway and garage. The architectural plans for the residential lots haven't been completely finite designed, but we are abiding by all of the requirements in terms of setbacks, height,
Right.
all of that kind of thing.
But as far as the parking itself,
Yeah.
if there are garages, are there spaces, 2 spaces inside, or is it one in the garage and one behind?
Correct. So since it hasn't been nailed down, I'm not entirely sure if they're doing tandem or double 2-car garages or not. But there will be, there will be 2 off-street parking spaces per each of those units.
You know, it's kind of late in the game right now. I mean, the place is basically developed, to be honest with you. I'm not sure there's a lot we could really do at this point, since most of what you're asking for is really already approved and existing on the surrounding properties. I do think traffic is and is going to continue to be bad, but it isn't because necessarily of the number of people in units. It's because of the limited number of streets. To get out of there, you have to go to Beebe, then down to the main drag. And there's no through streets. You can't get to Ramsey unless you go all the way down past the McDonald's or the other way to Celsius. I think that's a problem, but that's a problem that exists in the development that we can't control here or do much about at this point. If it was a brand-new application, I probably would take a lot of exception. At this point in time, I don't think there's much we can do as long as you are complying with the codes, with the variances, which to a great extent were granted throughout the development.
Yeah, and I think the La Crosse connection does help with that too, the new connection to Riverstone through 95. And the original PUD had just one large commercial building there, and in terms of traffic, this is actually a less intense use. There's less trips generated by residential than a large commercial building. So there should be less traffic than what was already approved.
Thank you.
Can you remind me and us, I guess, a little bit between the last time you were here and now? We did talk a little bit about height, and did you guys lowered the height?
Correct. So in the previous iteration in November, the residential units were proposed to be higher than the originally
And
approved.
you put those back down?
Correct.
Okay, I was just wanting to make sure.
Questions? No, no, no. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to close public testimony and bring this to the commission for further discussion and a motion.
I just want to say that I wasn't here when it was initially approved, but I believe that our traffic folks have inputted that that commercial use of that building would have driven more trips, more people who don't know the street. The comings and goings would have been random. They're turning right, they're turning left. I think the wear and tear on this quieter community would have been more. And so I think that backing down to these row house style housing units will be less impactful than what was obviously previously approved. And so I support this, and yes, we can't change the traffic. We might have to put up more signage, we might have to put speed bumps. God bless speed bumps. But, and certainly people should be very aware of when they're parking their car on the concrete pad to stay out of the sidewalk. It's notorious around here, people have their, rear ends sticking out in the road. Well, that has to be policed more and, cooperative. So I think that, we really can't change what was approved because it was more impactful of this adjacencies. And so I think this is a better solution than what was originally approved.
Go ahead, John.
I agree with Commissioner Fleming and everything you said there, especially with respect to the net with the change of the one lot is less traffic, and that's a good thing and whatnot. I was at the previous meeting that we voted to deny without prejudice, and as my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you could visually look at what was already approved and what's already in the ground And then the contemplated changed lot, it got narrower and more dense. And now what we're seeing is just a continuation of what is already there. So, with that, I'd also say that, Riverstone's not for everybody, it is more dense. It is more congested. The traffic is a little bit difficult. There isn't a backyard in these houses. And if you want that, come out and live with me in Coeur d'Alene Place. But, from the get-go, Riverstone was conceived long ago with, Mr. Stone laid out a vision that had Main Street, condos, and it had Bella Reeve tight lots. It had even high-rises, and the high-rises didn't manifest themselves, and they're not likely to manifest themselves. But we got a variety. We got, high-end apartments. We've got subsidized apartments. It's not for everybody, but it's kind of, in my mind, a pretty cool place. And I might give up my Coeur d'Alene Place house to live in one of those new ones, but I can't afford it.
Thank you, John. Any other comment, discussion, or a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
This matter having come before the Planning Commission on March 14th, 2023, and there being present a person requesting approval of PUD-3-19M squared, request for a modification to a planned unit development known as the Union. The applicant is Dennis Cunningham. The location is .67 acres located immediately east of the intersection on BB Boulevard and Union Drive. We have met the findings and we adopt items B1 through B7 covering posting and public notification. B8 pursuant to section 17.07.230, a planned unit development review criteria. A planned unit development may be approved only if the proposal conforms to the following criteria to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission. B8A, the proposal is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. This is based on the following policies, that it's fostering objective C 1.1.1, foster broad-based and inclusive community involvement for actions affecting businesses and residents. That the environment has been embraced and protected, that we are managing growth and development through a mix of land uses throughout the city that balance housing and employment, and that we promote mixed-use development and small-scale commercial uses to ensure that neighborhoods have services within walking and biking distance. That's objective GD 1.3. B8B, the design and planning of the site is compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. This is a continuation of what has been established and really isn't asking for anything different. B8C, the proposal is compatible with the natural features of the site and adjoining properties. In the case of property located within the hillside, we got none of that. We're basically flat with a slight slope to the west. And it is following the remaining development of the site. B8D, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. And that is certainly following the original PUD directives. There definitely will be fewer auto trips as compared to the original commercial development plan. B8E, the proposal does provide adequate private common open space area as determined by the Commission, with no less than 10% of the gross land area free of buildings, streets, driveways, or parking areas. The common open space shall be accessible to all users of the development and usable for open space and recreational purposes, and note that it will be open to the public. B8F, off-street parking does provide parking sufficient for users of the development based on our city ordinances. B8G, that the proposal does provide for an acceptable method for the perpetual maintenance of all common property following the CC&Rs and the Union HOA. In conclusion, the Planning Commission, pursuant to the aforementioned, finds the request of Dennis Cunningham for approval of the planned unit development as described in the application should be approved with the special conditions as noted through planning water and wastewater requirements. I so move.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and second. Any further discussion? Okay, Shannon, roll call?
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mandel,
Yes.
McCracken,
Yes.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
Yes. Okay, PUD 3-19M2 is approved, and I'll need a motion for S4-19M2, please.
Anybody? You do.
This matter having come before the Planning Commission on March 14, 2023, and there being present a person requesting approval of item S-4-19M2, a request for a modification to the proposed preliminary plat known as the Union. Applicant Dennis Cunningham, location .67 acres located immediately east of the intersection of Beebe Boulevard and Union Drive. We adopt findings items B1 to B6 as fact standards. And for B7, the pursuant to section 16.10.030A.1 preliminary plats, B7A, that all of the general preliminary plat requirements have been met as determined by the city engineer or his designee. This is based on B7B, provisions for sidewalks, streets, alleys, rights-of-way, easement, street lighting, fire protection, planting, drainage, pedestrian, bicycle facilities are adequate. Based on B7C, that the proposed preliminary plat does comply with all of the subdivision design standards contained in Chapter 16.15 and all of the subdivision improvement standards contained in Chapter 16.40 requirements. So based on B7D, the lots proposed in the preliminary plat do meet the requirements of the applicable zoning district. This is based on the criteria for B7D, which is required minimum lot size, required minimum street frontage, gross density within the maximum allowed for the applicable zone. The Planning Commission, therefore, pursuant to the aforementioned, finds that the request of Dennis Cunningham for preliminary plat of approval, as described in the application, should be approved. Special conditions applied as outlined by planning, water, and wastewater. There are 8 conditions.
Thank you. I have a first motion by Commissioner Mandel. Need a second?
Second?
I have a second by Commissioner Kraken. Roll call, Shannon, please.
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mandel,
Yes.
McCracken,
Yes.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
Yes. Okay, S-4-19M2 is approved. Next on our agenda is applicant is Hamilton Investment LLC. Location is 1411 North 4th Street, a proposed custom manufacturing special use permit in a C-17 zoning district. Thank you, Tammy, for your
Thank you.
presentation.
So again, the owner applicant is Joe Hamilton, Hamilton Investments, and this is a request for a custom manufacturing special use permit in the C-17 zoning district on a .16 acre parcel located at 1411 North 4th Street. And the legal notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on February 25th, 2023. This is a location map, and this is 4th Street, and Walnut is here, and Pilgrim's Market is here, Hazel is here, and this is, again, is the subject property. And this is another site photo a little closer. And this is the subject property outlined in the yellow here, and 4th Street. So the owner is requesting the custom manufacturing special use permit in a existing commercial space to be converted into a beverage processing production facility. A retail area will be provided where organic juices will be produced on site and sold directly to walk-in customers. They will also be brewing beer. That 100% of that beer will be sold to Pilgrim's Market, which is located just down the street and owned by the applicant. There will also be a small classroom, which would be allowed by right. The existing 3,608 square foot building was previously used for a retail-type wine and beer making business. So this is a conceptual site plan. As I said, this is an existing building located here. There are 2 parking spots that are existing here, And then there are a few more back here, and this is a mini storage shed that's also existing. This is a floor plan. This is a large cooler. This is the retail area along with the classroom, and then they've got a lot of equipment to utilize for beer making. You could probably ask the applicant if you've got more questions specifically to the site plan or the floor plan. So there are 3 required findings, finding B8A through B8C for this request. Finding B8A, this is that this proposal is or is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. So the subject property is within the city limits, and the comprehensive plan does designate this as retail center place type. And this is the subject property outlined here. And you can see this entire area is all also retail center corridor. Retail center corridor places are primarily car-oriented designations for retail services, hotels, motels, restaurants along major streets. Locations are often developed with large format retail uses with some infill commercial development, typically 1 to 3 stories, and some places are not easily walkable and generally have limited civic or other public uses, but because they are often located along major arterials, they may be served by transit. So finding B8B, the design and planning of the site is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses on adjacent properties. So the existing structure is approximately 3,600 square feet, and it was used for a retail type use to make beer and wine on site. And the proposed special use permit would allow the existing commercial space to be converted to a beverage processing production facility, brewing beer and some juices, and the beer would be sold to Pilgrim's Market. So this would be a custom manufacturing use. So there is a single-family dwelling unit that does abut the subject property to the north, and 2 older commercial structures that abut to the south. One was formerly a restaurant, and the other is, and they're both currently vacant. There are several commercial uses to the north of the subject property, including Casa, which is an advocate for children, and Thrifty Car Rental, and further north on 4th Street is where it's located. So across the street, along 4th Street, is a hair salon and Coeur d'Alene School District school bus parking and their shop. And then again, to the south of this site is Pilgrim's Market. So this is a site photo looking at the existing structure that they want to convert into custom manufacturing. And this is a single-family dwelling that I mentioned, and that's just to the north of the subject property. And then Casa is located here, and a car rental here. And this is south. I believe Syringa used to be here in this area, and then this is also formerly a commercial use, and then this is a subject property. And then this photo, you can see the former commercial building, single family. I believe it's a rental right now, I'm not positive. And this is the proposed site. And this is looking north on 4th Street at the hair salon, and beyond that is where the bus parking is. And in this area is where the subject property is located. This is along the alley, and you can see that they've got a few parking spaces back here and the existing storage building. And this is the rear portion of the subject property along with the single family that's located here. As far as zoning, the property is currently zoned C17, which is commercial. And as you can see, all of this area is zoned C17, so it is surrounded by commercial zoning. And land use, commercial use here, single family, and then commercial use, and then rear portion is also single family with commercial across the street on 4th Street. Finding B8C that the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will or will not be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. So all of the noted departments did take a look at this request, and in regard to public utilities and public facilities, they indicated that there are adequate services for the proposed request, and there were no objections to this request. And finding B8C continued, traffic generation estimates from the ITE Trip Generation Manual, Land Use Code 140, manufacturing indicates approximately 13 daily trips could be expected from the proposed use. Additional trips will likely be generated from the proposed juice sales and classroom, but they are expected to create minimal impact to traffic. Total trip generation is not expected to exceed the generated by the properties of the previous use, and Streets and Engineering did not have an objection to the proposed special use permit. And there are no recommended conditions for this request. So action alternatives, the Planning Commission will need to consider this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice.
Okay. Questions for Tammy, yeah.
Tammy, thank you. Just two questions, if I could, please. This area is actually north of the Midtown overlay, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the second thing is, this is a light manufacturing special use, and it's been determined that this, in fact, meets that criteria. If we approve this, and for some reason they decide to discontinue the use, could anyone come in with some other light manufacturing special use automatically riding on this approval? Would they need a separate approval?
So this is for custom manufacturing.
Right.
And I believe the special use permit would be tied to this use, and if they cease operation, then another person would have to come in and request a special
Thank
use
you.
permit.
Thank you very much.
John?
Good report, as always. Thank you. Question on parking. Am I correct that the 6 stalls meet planning requirements, correct?
That's correct.
That said, it seems potentially a little bit light, and maybe I'll throw that out there, and the applicant can wrestle that with us a little bit. But we've got a lot going on in there, and that's a good thing. You know, we got retail, you said, we got some educational classroom stuff, and then we got workers making beer, and that's good too. So we got a lot going on, and so, you know, on a busy day where you got a few retail people going in there, and you got a classroom happening, and some people brewing beer, 6 spots seems a little bit light. So I wonder if you had an opinion there. Maybe the applicant can address that, and maybe we could get one more spot by knocking the mini storage down or doing something. Maybe I throw that out there. Do you have any reaction to that?
No, based on our parking code, that's all that was triggered. It's 1 per 1,000 for the custom manufacturing, and then 1 per 330 for the retail, and the retail area is about 330 square feet. The previous use, we never had any complaints or issues with the parking. We also spoke with the applicant about deliveries, and he could probably get into more of that with you. But the use that was there to make beer and wine, they had deliveries that came through the alley and dropped them off there. And they said they didn't have any issues, and we had no complaints. So
Thank you.
they do meet it.
Tammy, I'm sorry.
Okay.
In the other use that was there, did they have, were they making or also just selling equipment to make beer and wine someplace else? Sure.
I believe they were actually having folks come in and make wine, and then they
Okay.
would take it home with them.
All right.
And there's no street parking in this location on
No.
4th, is there?
No.
It's a throughway.
Okay. Go ahead.
But again, the 6 parking spots meets our code currently.
That's correct.
So I'm not so sure that we're not going to have, in the future, more discussion on parking. And I got a feeling that it's going to go the other way, where we want to reduce the parking requirements. This isn't the time to bring it up, but I think it's time to think about it, to sometime maybe address that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Tammy.
And the applicant is here, and the applicant's representative is also here.
Okay. Welcome. Just state your name and the city you live in, and I'll swear you in.
Joe Hamilton, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I could maybe address the concern that Commissioner Ingalls brought up there. Initially, I came to the planning department and said that we wanted to devote all the space to the manufacturing, which is a lighter load on parking, you know, because you don't have as many people as you do for retail or a class or something like that. But I was told that we had to have something open to the public. It's actually my preference that we would not have something open to the public, and we would just be making product there. the organic juices and beer. And I don't know if that's something that you all could approve this evening or not. But as I understand it, maybe Tammy would have to address that we're supposed to have something open to the public.
Okay,
So-
we can,
Something to think about. I don't know. It was definitely my original preference to just make it manufacturing. At any rate, I would just like to share some thoughts I have on how I feel that granting the special use permit is consistent with the 6 guiding principles in the comprehensive plan. I think the guiding principle number 1 there regarding the community and identity of the community, I think granting this permit would not interfere with this guiding principle in any way. In fact, while leased to Pilgrim's Market, the planning committee can be assured that employees and customers of all sexes, races will be welcomed in the equal opportunity environment that Pilgrim's is known to be. Guiding principle number 2 is education and learning. If granted, this permit would support this principle really well, I believe. The special use permit is for a custom manufacturing space with an education center that's open to the public. While Pilgrim's Market leases the space and beyond, this will be a perfect venue to provide lifelong learning opportunities and family-friendly activities. Pilgrim's Market has literally held over 500 events in the last 22 years. And in the last year, we had to kind of shutter our education center in our facility just because we're expanding more food production space. And this being across the street, it seemed like a nice place to be able to get those events happening again. It's been a really important thing for Pilgrims for a couple decades now. Guiding principle number 3 has to do with the environment and recreation. I shoehorned an angle on that, but I see that wasn't addressed earlier in the report, so I'm going to skip over that one. In terms of guiding principle number 4 that addresses growth and development, I think granting this permit would directly add to the richness of our city's livability by providing great jobs that are close to people's homes, which facilitates and encourages walking and biking to work. Pilgrims has won national awards for its successful growth and business innovation. Since the building does not meet current parking requirements for C-17, actually, which is interesting, it's zoned and active and occupied in C-17, but according to the current parking, it doesn't actually have enough spaces, according to my count. Granting the special use permit that, with the custom manufacturing, that only requires less parking is actually an advantage. Guiding principle number 5 regarding health and safety. I was going to skip that one, sorry. I mean, we are in the business of health. I'm not sure how we shoehorn safety into that, but guiding principle number 6, jobs and economy, I think granting the special use permit would enrich not only the quality of our city's employment landscape, but also its variety. Permitting a very small custom manufacturing facility in the city would provide a great stepping stone for cottage industries, I mean, who's to say that Coeur d'Alene someday doesn't have a Lighthouse dressing company or a Cyrus O'Leary pies or something? We produce over 600 items in Pilgrims from scratch, and I don't know, who knows, maybe we spin off a company someday. We also collaborate with other local, very small operators. Coffee Roboto is one that we have provided commercial food production space to over the years. And sadly, recently, because our operation has grown so busy, we don't really have room for them anymore. And this would be, and part of their, well, yeah, they're a beverage company. They make a variety of beverages and sell them to local restaurants, and they do steady bar activities like non-alcoholic bartending things for events and weddings and stuff. And at the moment, they're without a space. So something like this that was really devoted for production and manufacturing, that's close to where people live, I think would be great. let's see. I said the beverage center will be leased to Pilgrims, and Pilgrims has a solid track record of providing great jobs in the community. In 2023, we'll pay nearly $4.5 million at an average rate of $21.50 an hour in total compensation. Beyond just wages, it's estimated that the regular expenses of Pilgrims alone will contribute an additional $10 million into the local economy. In fact, it makes Pilgrims one of the largest employers in the city limits. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm sure you have some questions.
Questions of Joe?
I have a couple of quick.
Sure, go right ahead.
Mr. Hamlin, thank you for being here. Just a couple of quick questions. This type of use, you're producing looks different types of drinks. Does that generate a lot of odor that would be smelled in the neighborhood as opposed to being contained in the building?
No, I don't think so. I mean, organic juices, we'll be
I was thinking more
doing
about
botanical infusions with teas.
Thinking more about herbs and hops that go into beer.
Yeah,
to be
I
honest.
mean, certainly there's several other breweries smack dab in the middle of neighborhoods in the city limits. And our production volume will be very small we'll probably be the smallest production beer facility in the area.
Okay. A couple other things. What about loading? When product is brought that is to be used, where are you going to unload trucks if that becomes necessary?
Yeah, so I think when Syringa was there, Pilgrims actually started in that building where Syringa was, and then
Didn't know
Monarch
that.
was. That's
Uh-huh.
actually where it started. I mean, I've seen trucks stop on 4th Street. I've seen them stop on the road, Walnut Street. There is an alley there.
Yeah.
I would probably discourage that, just, maybe it would create the kind of traffic at some of the adjacent neighbors. I mean, I would do everything I could to be a good neighbor, and if we had a neighbor maybe complain, we'd try to find an alternative.
Just a couple other things, I'm sorry. How about outside storage? Would you need to do any of that? Or you fit everything that's delivered to you inside the building?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And just, how about trash pickup? I didn't see that reflected on your plan. Where would that be?
Let's see, trash pickup. Boy, I don't know. Probably in the alley, because there's other commercial businesses on that road. There's an alley that goes between. I'm guessing that it's in the alley.
Now, the
I've never
reason
seen
I'm
any
asking- yeah.
bins on 4th Street, that's for sure.
The reason I'm asking is that the entire back looks to be parking. I'm not sure where you would place a dumpster, even though I understand the pickup would be from the alley.
Yeah. Well, there is a space currently with a shed. I'm sure we could transfer the use of that space from the shed to, garbage pickup.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Appreciate it.
Yes, yeah.
John, you have a question? I've got a question, just what Joe brought up about the actual use inside. Where did that come from, and is it possible to place any kind of a condition on this with approval or not? To say that, okay, the applicant really doesn't want any sales, and perhaps we can put a condition?
The tricky thing is you have to have a principal use. So he's asking for a special use permit, and so this is zone C17, and the custom manufacturing is special use permit. So there has to be something that fits in that principal use category, so that then you can have this as kind of an additional use. So that's where staff had discussed that it could be kind of the retail component, it could be the food, beverage, off-site consumption. The community education doesn't fit as kind of the primary, because that's not really doesn't fit into that group activity, even though the education is allowed, that doesn't meet that criteria either. So that's the tricky part, is just trying to figure out what that little nuance is to make it meet that C17.
Okay,
I-
go ahead. Well,
can-
John, and then,
Go ahead.
yeah. Ladies first.
Go ahead.
So it has to be open to the public, but we don't dictate what that means in terms of hours or services,
Correct.
right? So
Right.
something has to be accessible to the public, but if it's educational workshops 3 nights a week or juice takeout 4 mornings a week or something, we're not in a position to dictate what that public access needs to be, correct?
Right, we don't determine those hours, and I don't think, Tammy, didn't have any discussion on that? Yeah, so that could be, yeah, you guys could kind of have it so that maybe it's during the hours that aren't as intensive of use for kind of the brewing operations or the education, that it's not all at the same time.
Along the same lines, could the principal use be distribution? And just an office space open?
I don't think, do you recall looking,
They're
I can look at this
distributing to their
list,
store?
but I don't think distribution fits as the principal use for that. I think that would need to be in like that light manufacturing or manufacturing as the principal use.
Well, throw it out as a question, Hillary, it sounds to me like the applicant, if we approved this, would have a great deal of flexibility where we're really approving the light manufacturing, the making of juice and beer and such. And as you point out, with the hours or frequencies or whatever, maybe you have a class in there once a quarter or whatever. But
Well, I mean, we were offering classes for 20 years, but really intense for probably 10 years, and we would have 2 a week, maybe. Sometimes just one on a Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. or something.
and that's kind of what you do at your store too, right? All the time.
I'm sorry.
That's what you do at your store as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When we used to do them at the store, but we've lost that facility over there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We'll bring you back if we have any other questions.
Okay.
Thanks. First person I have on sign up is Lawrence Lubinsky, and indicated wanted to speak. Name, city you live in, I'll swear you in, Lawrence.
Lawrence Lipinski, commonly called Larry. Lawrence was what my mother would yell out the back door when I was in trouble. I live in Coeur d'Alene.
Okay, great. Do you solemnly swear and affirm that testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I was hired at Pilgrim's 6 months ago as manager of a beverage production department. And this concept has been realized vision of Joe's. And so I've been pretty involved in the detail, layout, and design interior. So I'd be more than happy to discuss any specifics about that I hear some questions about. I want to take a moment and address the notion of where the dumpster would be located, and just refer to the picture here. This shed is actually fairly poor condition right now, and it's going to be removed. I would recommend that we just place a screened area here for a dumpster on the side. That way, it wouldn't be a visual detractor. And the reason I choose this location is, let's see, I'm gonna guess. Wrong way. I should have memorized the deck. There. Okay, so this area back here is where the brewing equipment will be located, and this doorway right here. The brewing happens for us will be all grain mostly, and part of that process will result in a portion of called spent grains. It's kind of the functional equivalent of what happens with your tea bag. You brew your tea and then you have the spent leaves afterwards. Well, we'll have some spent grain, and so that would be removed out this door in tubs. We're really focused on being ecologically minded at Pilgrim's, and our intention will be to provide those grains. First of all, the grains will be organic grain, non-GMO. We're looking to provide an end result product that is made from the best ingredients that we can obtain commercially. But so that grain is commonly used as livestock feed, or it can secondarily could be used for composting if someone wants to do that. I'm acquainted with several people who are organic gardeners, and they would be willing to take that. Anyway, after a day or two of it being out here in that screened area, if someone didn't come and get it, I know many of the microbreweries here in the Coeur d'Alene area make agreements with farmers or others who are interested to come and pick that up. Didn't happen, then it would go into the solid waste and be disposed of, responsibly that way. This shows a trench drain. There's been a lot of development work done to provide a responsible treatment for the brewery wastewater. Granted, a 2-barrel system is only going to average out around 100 gallons of water a day, which isn't a whole lot for a commercial setting. But we still have plans, a way to manage that and treat that in agreement with the guidelines that were given to us by wastewater management. One of the big features of this floor plan, undeniable, is this big monster right here. That's a walk-in cooler. It seems like one of the most valuable spaces there are at Pilgrim's is the cooler space, because of the nature of the fresh produce and other things. We need to keep it refrigerated, and this is going to provide not only a resource for the ingredients that we'll be using for the juicing, but it will also be a backup resource for the main store. This area of space is very interesting. This provides public access on the east side facing 4th Street, and it will give us enough room that we can have a typical class participation seated comfortably, but it would be a fairly close space for a more conversational kind of a session. Let's see, one of the other features that I'm really excited about is we're going to use reverse osmosis filtered water in this facility. So we're going to use as pure water as possible in both for support of all the beverages, sparkling water, juice infused waters, things like that, as well as, brewing, and in an effort to use the finest, purest water we can get hold of. And I guess my time's up. Are there any questions?
No, well, good. Thank you. Appreciate it, Larry.
Okay.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good evening.
Next, I have Ashley, I can't make out the last name. Bain?
No.
Oh,
Oh, Ashley Baum?
did not wish to testify, though?
You don't want to speak? Okay.
No? Yes?
Nope.
No?
You're
Okay.
in favor?
Thank you.
Mike Baum,
Mike Bohm?
he's in favor.
Okay.
President accounted for.
Connie Madison did not wish to testify. Scott Adamson did not wish to testify. Janice Lee did not give any indication what she wanted to do. And that's all I have. Anyone else wants to speak before I ask Joe if he has anything else to say? If not, I'll close public comment on this and testimony. Okay, closing public comment and testimony and bring it to commission for a little bit of discussion and a motion. Please.
I've got no issues. Anyone else?
No issues on my end.
Good with this?
Just thirsty.
Like custom juice?
I would say one thing. Mr. Hamilton said that the guiding principle number 3 regarding recreation is a little bit of a stretch. I think he said shoehorned it in. Maybe it's not quite a good fit, but as a University of Idaho graduate, I would say there's clearly a nexus, between beer drinking and recreation. For the record.
No doubt.
Well said.
Very good, John.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
It sounds like we're not going to beat this one. Okay, this matter having come before the Planning Commission on today, March 14th, 2023, and there being present a person requesting approval of item SP-3-23, a custom manufacturing special use permit in the C-17 zoning district. The applicant is Joe Hamilton of Hamilton Investments LLC. Location is 1411 North 4th Street, Coeur d'Alene. The Planning Commission adopts the B1 through B7 about public testimony. B8, pursuant to section 17.09.220 special use permit criteria, a special use permit may be approved only if the proposal conforms to all the following criteria to the satisfaction of the Planning Commission. B8A, the proposal is in conformance with the comp plan with specific focus on fostering broad-based and inclusive community involvement, creating an educational environment, and a mix of land uses throughout our city core, as well as retain and grow businesses locally. B8B, the design and planning of the site is compatible with location, setting, and existing uses on the adjacent properties. This is actually continuing a history in this site of beer making, so that's kind of a match. And it does fit within the surrounding area. It is also going to be part of the retail center in that area, and it will feed back and forth to the existing business across the street. We are C-17 surrounded, and it is definitely an area of change. So seeing something that will enliven this area is important. There's just a lot of blank space over there, and I think seeing people walking up that far north will be great. B8C, the location, design, and size of the proposal are such that the development will be adequately served by existing streets, public facilities, and services. It is a major thoroughfare, and it has great frontage, so it's good to see that something will take place in that location. I think the special use permit is an ideal solution. All city departments weighed in, and there are no issues. In conclusion, the Planning Commission pursuant to the aforementioned finds that Joe Hamilton for a special use permit as described in the application should be approved. And there are no special conditions.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Fleming,
Second.
second by Commissioner Mandel. Roll call, Shannon, please.
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mandel,
Yes.
McCracken,
Yes.
Lutrip,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Messina.
Yes. Thank you. SP-3-23 is approved. Congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for the applause. That's kind of nice applause this time, I think. If we can have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have, okay. First
Second.
and second.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
All in favor? Aye. And we'll see you in
May.
May. Okay.
Yay.
May and springtime.
Yes, please.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It'll be snowing
Maybe.
now.
Oh, come on, come on.
Hour left to vote.
I was going home anyway. Yay.